All right, guys, today is the first episode of Behind the Reel. We have a special guest, Mr. Jacob Ward.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Jacob Ward is the club president of the Southeast Kansas Kayak Anglers.
Sir.
That's how we met each other.
Yep.
And he's a kayak fisherman. We want to pick his brain today. The idea behind the Behind the Reel series is just trying to get other people's perspectives on and a little bit off the water. So I've got 10 questions I'm going to ask him that may open up a dialogue into some other things. We'll just kind of see how that branches off, and however today goes, we'll kind of figure out how maybe the next episode will go from there. So we're just going to get right to it, and we're putting the pressure on him.
I can feel it.
So okay, so as I said, Jacob Ward is the club president of the Southeast Kansas Kayak Anglers. He's got some hardware back here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this last season, how you did, just kind of go from there.
Yeah, sure. So this year was our second year of our club. It grown quite a bit from the first year. I think we had 13 people. 11 to 13 people show up to our first event, and I think we averaged probably 25 to 30 at every event we had this coming year. So that alone for my group was quite a bit. How my year went, my home lake, I really wanted to get that first place. I came just shy of it. I took home that second place for the second year in a row, but I'm still proud of that.
So that's the big hill?
That's the big hill. So,
okay.
That's
we also got a second place over here.
So Bone Creek, that was a really hot tournament. It was really tough. It was in the middle of summer. I think it was July. It was July 25th.
Yeah.
It's that lake's really has a lot of trees, a lot of timber. I had worked back up. I think it was the east side or the west side of that lake, back into a cove, throwing a chatterbait, and really started hammering on them, but I just couldn't get that fifth fish like I wanted to, so I finished just shy of first place and took home that second place. But it was a tough tournament. We had a lot of one fish turn-ins, so for finishing second, I still feel like I did pretty good at that tournament. Sure.
The last time I fished Bone Creek, I believe I had one or two fish, and that seems to be a place that clubs around here like to go in the warmer months. I don't know if that has something to do with all the timber, maybe being able to find them stacked up in there during the...
It's well known for big bass. They have a Thursday night jackpot for the boat guys, and 19 inches is the minimum length to bring in. So everybody was like telling me to fish deep, and I stuck to what I know, and I was fishing about 4 feet from the bank. And I mean, I was nailing with a green pumpkin jackhammer all day.
Cool.
Just couldn't get that last kicker fish.
So back to the hardware here. We're seeing Angler of the Year. Yep. So we know you didn't seal the deal on your home lake. Couldn't get it done on Bone Creek, but obviously you were very consistent.
Yeah, the only first place I brought in was a team tournament trophy, which we pretty much kicked butt on it.
Is that what this one is then?
That's what the smaller one is there. It was a newer event that we were doing this year for our club, but I don't think I finished below, and I could be wrong, but I don't think I finished below a sixth place finish. I generally had a second to third place. I think I had one or two fifth or sixth place spots in there. So, I mean, I was pretty consistent.
Yeah.
And the points, it was pretty close between me and a couple guys until that last regular event, and then that's kind of where I think I finished 17 to 20 points ahead of second place. So
cool. So just for my own information and for maybe me, so that's what kind of this whole thing is about, is for us being able to learn from each other. I want to learn from Jacob, and I want to learn from whoever else I bring along on this next Behind the Reel series. So this is something that I could use as a tournament angler. How are you determining the Angler of the Year points? Are you doing 100 for first place, 99 for second, or are you putting a couple points in between each angler? How do you do that?
So most clubs still do 100 and then go directly down to 99. me as a person, I feel like if you get first place, you earned first place. So I do 100 points, and then second place goes down to 98, and then a point.
97, 96, 95. Okay, so basically if you get first, you get more than just 1 point more than second place.
Yeah, I feel like if you get first place, you earn just that little extra because, 1 point's nothing.
I've seen some guys, they'll do like 200, 198.
Yeah.
Or 200, 198, 196. They'll do something like that because a lot of times you'll see Angler of the Year standings very, very close.
Yeah. It was, I think, only a couple points between me and a guy named Daniel and Logan in my group there till the last tournament, and that's really where it.
Something else, I think, putting that gap in there would help drive competition because if guys know they can miss a certain amount of tournaments a year, then they'll go ahead and schedule, okay, well, I'm going to miss 2.
Yep.
But if you know that there's going to be a bigger gap in between first and second place or, that scoring system, then I think that would make people want to show up to as many as they possibly could.
Yeah, so like our championship, we like this last year we had 5 tournaments and either had to fish 4 out of the 5 to qualify for the championship or you had to be top 10 in AOI. So same way with the points, I think it helps people from not missing a couple tournaments just to make the championship. You have to fish most of the tournaments to make it. So
cool. Well, that was more for my knowledge than anything, but maybe you guys are interested and have an opinion on how your local club is, scoring your AOI points within your own division. So maybe you can drop a comment in the comment section below on that if you have an opinion. Okay, Sportsman of the Year. That's one thing that I wanted to touch on as well. How did you earn the Sportsman of the Year award?
So Sportsman of the Year is done by a vote. Basically, I announced it at a couple of my tournaments, like, hey, at the end of the year, we're going to have Sportsman of the Year. Sportsman of the Year for my club is someone who's not only helpful with, like what techniques they use or what baits they are using that day, but the person that's out there helping you load and unload your kayak. If you message them on Facebook, they're always willing to help you do those things. And that's kind of what me as a tournament director want to base my Angler of the Year off of. So I explain that to the guys.
Or Sportsman of the Year.
Sportsman of the Year.
Somebody who's helping grow the club, helping promote the sport of kayak fishing, getting new people introduced, lending a hand, helping with maybe club sponsorships or maybe helping just get the tent set up at the end of the day or whatever.
So at the end of the year, I had everyone vote that fished the tournaments. I messaged every single person, or at our last event, I had everybody write down a name, tallied them up. Cool. I only won by, I think, 1 vote over the next guy. So we had 3 people tie for second place.
Nice.
So something that I did for those guys is I actually made separate plaques for them.
Cool.
And gave them an award too, because I felt like they deserved it probably a little bit more than I did.
So you have people within your club that have been as helpful, maybe even as you have. Obviously, as a tournament director, as the club president, that's just kind of all in one, at least with these smaller clubs around here. You don't have a whole staff of guys, so you kind of do everything. I'm sure you do most of the legwork, but it is nice to have some people you can rely on every now and then. So that's nice that you have that. I will comment on his participation. He's got a lot of guys down here that are fishing a lot of tournaments. He inspired me to kind of get back into it and maybe lit a fire under me a little bit to get more involved with my club. So as you know, I'm the president angler of the Air Capital Kayak Anglers, and I will say the last couple years I've kind of lost a little bit of my passion just with things at home and at work, and the club sometimes takes a back seat. So anyway, seeing him do what he did, the awesome awards that he has been able to provide, the amount of tournaments that he ran this year with his Wednesday nighters or his weekday
we do a
events.
Monday night league. We start, I think, at 5:30, fish till dark. It's a $10 entry fee. Winner takes all. We do best of 3 fish. Something to keep, people who want to learn about the sport can come and enter for a cheaper price, and then those guys that want to fish during the week can come fish for, and win a couple $100.
And he had some really good attendance at some of those too, where you'd have 20 or 30 guys even.
Yeah, I think one night we had 25 or 27 show up.
And he's out here in the middle of nowhere, southeast Kansas. You know, I'm in the biggest city in the entire state, and I'm having a hard time getting, you know, 10, 15 guys put together. So I think that speaks volumes, what he's doing. And then maybe even also the runners-up on Sportsman of the Year are probably helping promote and get the word out there and inviting friends and stuff like that. So anyways, we kind of got off on a tangent there. But anyways, that is kind of what we were wanting to get out of this. Man, we haven't even gotten into the questions yet.
I know. I'm pretty good at steering off.
So, okay, so let's get into question number one. Okay. What got you into kayak fishing? You know, we can kind of veer off into what got you fishing. Sure. I'd like to hear a little bit about that, and then also maybe follow up with what got you into the kayak fishing.
Yeah. So, as a kid, my brother took me fishing when I was, I don't know, 4, I think. He was in high school. We're 11 years apart, and I always remember him in his orange truck taking me to go to our pond, and I had a little bitty like 4-foot pole, you know, they'd cast clear across the pond, and that kind of is where my addiction to fishing started. We moved to a different house that had a creek that ran behind it, and I literally fished every single day in that creek, and there was a pond that my neighbor let me fish that had, you know, 10-inch bluegill, you know, solidly in there. So that's kind of how I got into fishing. Was my brother kind of started me on that as a kid, and the fire never really went away. Kayaking fishing, I always wanted a boat. You know, as an 18 to 20-some-year-old young adult, I couldn't really afford the bass boat that I wanted, and I started looking, you know, at Bass Pro and online at these different places that had kayaks, and I was like, man, that'd be kind of neat, you know. And this was before I even knew about any kayak clubs or anything like that. We lived by a small state lake not far from here. I mean, my wife lived in an apartment, and I finally talked her into letting me buy a 12-foot Ascend, which was super heavy. And I bought that.
In the apartment.
That was two flights up, 2 stairs. And I just...
Probably driving a little Ford Taurus or something, you know? Like.
Yeah, I had my Tacoma.
Okay.
Well, shortly before that, I had a 6-foot-long bed on a F-150, so it wasn't much better, but
yeah,
I just fished that every day, and then we moved down here to Cherryville, and then I met you. And we moved to the town of Cherryville, and I would drive by the park, and I would see the Northeast guys and you guys up here, and I was like, what the heck, you know, like, I want to go fish that, but I never could find any information.
For the King of the Hill?
The King of the Hill, and I think either you or the Northeast guys had a regular event down here as well. And
I think so, yeah.
It was two years in a row where I was like, I didn't even know anything about it, couldn't find anything about you guys online, and then randomly, I think I found Josie from the Northeast, or I found you. I can't remember which one I found first, and then I was just like all about it, you know. But
so did you fish one of our club events before?
I didn't.
Well, your first tournament, what tournament was that? Was that one of your own tournaments?
My first tournament was the very first one that I put on.
Wow.
The only other tournaments I ever fished in my life was a crappie tournament with my brother when I was about 9 or 10.
Okay.
And ironically, we won that tournament.
So you were
3.5 pound
more
crappie.
excited about kayak fishing than necessarily tournament. Tournament kayak fishing was almost like a byproduct of starting a club.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm going to start a club, then I got to do, you know, tournaments. So, okay.
You know, I had looked up for the area if there was anything in the area, and there really wasn't. There was another guy locally that I'd never met that I'd been messaging on Facebook, and I had the idea before I'd even talked to him. It's just one of those things I just never, you know, put to fruition. And then he kind of, it's one of those things where I wanted to do it before he started it, type things, and I ended up doing it, and now it is where it is. I think we have 500 members now on Facebook as of yesterday.
How many? So you do a paid membership for your club.
Yeah.
How many paid members did you have? Do you have an idea?
Last year, I think I had 50.
50?
It's 53 or 55.
Sure.
I believe and that was the first year that I did a paid membership. And the reason I do pay it is to pay for these trophies.
Yeah.
And different things like that, just to help my club grow and make it, that more worthwhile when you win a first place or a second place. I just do a first and second place trophy. If we get to where I'm averaging 50 to 70 people,
Sure.
I'd probably go up a little bit more, but I just do a first and second place, and then I do cash for first, second, however many other places there are.
Pay out like top 10% or?
So I do per 10 anglers.
Okay.
So if there's 1 to 10, I do first place, 11 through 20, first and second, and then so on.
Okay.
So like if I have 31 and above, I do first, second, and third.
Okay. So. Cool. Okay, so you've been fishing your whole life.
Yep.
Your brother got you started on that. As you got older, you couldn't afford the boat, got the kayaks, saw other people kayak fishing, started your own club, fished your own. Your very first tournament was your own club tournament. That's pretty cool. So was 2020 the first year you did Angler of the Year?
Yeah, 2020 was the first year I did
Our first tournament season?
First tournament season that I did it. It was a couple things. I kind of wanted to do it before. I just didn't really know how I wanted to go about it. And then the All-American kind of came about, and they did a deal where, whoever got a Sportsman of the Year award for your club automatically got a spot to fish the All-American. I think they got half off their entry fee to do that. So it was kind of, I already wanted to do it, and that kind of pushed me to for sure push that out for this season. I was actually going to wait to start it till this coming season, but I went ahead and pushed it out for 2020.
Cool. Okay, so that's what got you into kayak fishing. Yeah. Okay, so we want to kind of start diving a little bit more behind the reel. Okay, yeah, so sure. This is the man behind the reel. This is, how does his brain tick? How, when he's out on the water, how does he break apart an area? What are some styles he likes to fish? So these are the things that we want to kind of dig into. So we kind of know who Jacob Ward is now. Let's start figuring out what makes him tick. So the first thing that I think is going to help us get an idea of you on the water is, what is your favorite style of fishing? And then you can kind of go into, maybe a couple key baits.
Yeah. I have a couple of styles that I like. As a kid, it was always like a small swim bait or like an inline spinner, something basic. Mm-hmm. Really, my two favorites are probably a swim jig / chatterbait. I kind of consider those similar.
Okay.
And then kind of finessey. I'm a faster finesse guy. I probably should slow down, but I'm a little bit faster of like a Ned Rig, wacky worm guy. Those are probably my top two that I would say are my go-tos. If I only had two rods, those would be my two rods. I'd have a swim jig and probably a Ned Rig.
Okay. Okay. All right. That brings us to number 3. How do you prepare for a tournament? You could go several different ways with this question.
Yeah.
We could talk about pre-fishing. We could talk about map study. We could talk about pre-tournament rituals. Yeah. Are you sacrificing small animals? I mean, we want to know, what are you doing? How are you coming out with Angler of the Year here? There's something to that.
Yeah.
I think that people that want to improve, even if they're good tournament fishermen, even if they're better than you, they may have something to learn from how you prepare for a tournament.
Yeah. So the first thing I do for a tournament is I figure out what the water clarity is like.
I just keep thinking about him sacrificing a small animal. I need to get that out of my head.
Well, all my animals are large, but yeah, I don't sacrifice any animals. But yeah, basically I figure out kind of what the water clarity is, whether that's, if it's a lake far away, searching on Google or looking it up, or if it's a local club, that if it's a lake I don't know, I'll drive up there and look, or kind of talk to some friends or guys that I know that fish that area. Because to me, that's what determines what colors I'm personally going to throw. I also get on, I actually use Apple Maps, and I'll look at like different points and different coves and kind of figure out like what looks best as far as like laydowns in grass and things like that, and figure out like where am I gonna start off from, and where am I gonna start from the ramp and find that starting point. That's always my first goal, because then I can always adjust from that point. Like if there's no fish there and it's not working out, I can always figure out a different spot.
Plan B.
Yeah. As far as like getting my tackle rigged, I take my crate with all my boxes in, and I have a cubby right in front of my legs that I fill. I take that out and I go in my tackle room. I take everything out of it and I go through all my soft plastics, all my jigs, everything, and I figure out what colors am I going to use, what secondary colors am I going to use for that water clarity, and then I'll figure out the 4 or 5 baits or however many poles I take, and I'll tie on the baits that I'm going to start with. And then in my cubby hole, I put all the plastics and all of my jigs and everything that is like my backup or my extra plastics to tie back on in that spot. That way I can get to it quickly and don't have to reach around and fiddle with that.
So just being organized. If you're going to go to a place with 5 foot of visibility, there's really no point in having a bunch of, black and blue or, chartreuse, whatever, right? So if you're going to be fishing dirty water that day, you're going to make sure basically everything that's ready to go is going to fit that style of fishing.
I have all my poles rigged. I have all the things that I'm either I think I'm going to switch to, or my Ned rig plastic wears out. I can grab another and put it on. Everything that I have behind me in my crate is things that if I'm going to completely change up, I'll stop what I'm doing and reach back and change it up. Most of the time I don't even touch behind me unless it's a situation where I'm just not catching any fish.
That makes sense.
It's just, for me, it's easier to keep everything organized in front of me than it is to reach back and have to completely redo everything every time.
So a little bit of map study, a little bit of organization, tackle prep, maybe. So if you're going to pre-fish, let's say you're going to fish one of our events in the Air Capital. You've never fished there before. We're gonna go fish Butler State Fishing Lake. You're gonna join us on that one. When you go there, you'll do the same thing. You'll look at the map. You'll find a couple of key places you want to check out. Have some baits in mind. You'll ask me. I'll tell you it's muddy as hell, and you'll be ready for that. So when you get on the water, what are you looking for?
If it's not dark, completely dark, I'll look for timber that's been laid over. I love those. If I see those, I'll throw a Texas rear worm depending on the time of the year. I'll look for grass.
A Zoom old monster. That's his secret.
Old monster.
He wasn't gonna.
That's my favorite.
He wasn't gonna put that out there, but I'm telling you,
it is.
I'm exposing him.
My favorite color of that is watermelon seed. I don't know how many people love that color, but that's like my go-to. The 10-inch version, they have the mag old monsters, which I'll throw sometimes, but my go-to is watermelon seed old monster.
Okay, all right.
I just Texas rig it and I don't even drag it.
Just when you come fish Butler with us, make sure you throw watermelon seed. It's going to be great.
I'll do it.
Okay, so you're on the water, you're pre-fishing, you're looking for laydowns, you're kind of establishing a plan B.
Yeah, I'm a lot of more of a visual guy than I am really like electronics wise. That's just because of growing up, I never really had any of that stuff. So everything I look for is all visual. Laydowns, if there's rock, if there's bluffs over it, I look for everything visual, and kind of start from there, and then kind of figure out what my plan's going to be if what I'm throwing is not working.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I expect to see you at Butler.
All right.
There's a lot of big fish in Butler. A little known fact, Butler has the highest lunker rating in the entire state.
That's awesome.
There's a lot of really big fish in there. It's a very small state fishing lake. It's a no-wake lake. It's great for kayak anglers. And we always put up, 80, 85 inches for, to win that event. So
yeah, it's pretty good.
Pretty good. You're catching 17, 18, 20 inch. I think this last year we did an online event. Ivan Diaz, which is going to be joining us this next year. He's a fellow Hobie guy now. He was recently surprised with that. So I can say that now.
Yeah.
He got a passport from me. But anyways, he caught a 22-inch bass out of there.
It's a big fish.
It's a huge fish. So anyways, I knew we were going to veer off into all.
Talking to me, it's,
Okay. How do you prepare for a tournament? So kind of went over that. And we kind of dove into the technology aspect, but we could take that a few different ways. So how has technology changed your approach, your style of fishing, your time on the water?
I think technology side, as far as like graphs go, for me personally, it really hasn't changed a lot. I do have a graph. I have a Lowrance hook 2 7-inch. The most I use it for is to figure out what is underneath me, as far as if there's mud, grass, rock, and temperature of the water. That's mainly what I use my graph for.
Maybe
right now.
depth.
And depth. I don't do a lot of deep fishing, but that's kind of why I wanted to get a graph and learn more about graphs, because I want to learn how to go out when it's tough up shallow, to go out deep and maybe drop shot.
Do you ever use like the mapping side of that?
I only use mapping to kind of tell like how far I've gone, especially like when I go to national events. I can kind of tell like where I'm at, how far I've went, and kind of how far it's going to take, or how long and how far it's going to be to get me to a spot where I've thought about going if this spot's not working.
Okay. So something you already mentioned and you're not even thinking about right now. A piece of technology that you do use to prepare for a tournament is Apple Maps.
Yep.
So
Apple Maps just gives me, really what I use Apple Maps for, especially when I go to a large lake, is to figure out where a ramp's at, where I can unload from, kind of what the cove looks like, as far as, because I always use the, what is it called? The satellite image. So it kind of gives me a view of what it actually looks like as far as surroundings.
Bottom composition, is there hard bottom? Is there, grass coming up out of the water line?
I'll look at the maps and kind of get an idea of like what kind of cove timber that is there. And then once I actually get to a lake, I physically will drive around the lake looking. Between the two, that's how I figure out where I'm going to fish and where I'm going to start at.
So I guess part of the answer to that question is Apple Maps has been a piece of technology that has changed your approach to pre-fishing, or getting ready for a tournament. So you're not out there driving around. You already have these, locations in mind. You're going to go check them out, and you may decide it's not worth your time.
I literally go on my maps, and if I find a spot I like, or if I go pre-fish that and I'm catching fish, or there's a certain laydown, I'll literally get on my maps and drop a pin, and I'll leave a note like big timber here, or something like that. Like when I go fish the strip pits, there's 1,000 strip pits, so I'll mark each pit that I fish, like what I caught in it, what's there. I kind of give them nicknames. And that way I can go back later and be like, okay, this is where I'm going to start, or this is where I'm going to start, and this is where I'm going to finish, or this is where I'm going to go.
And then, so you mark the waypoint, you drop a pin, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And do you go back and look at that on your phone when you're on the water, or?
The only time I'll go back and look at it if I'm on the water is if I'm trying to change it up completely and go to a different spot. Usually if I get to a spot, I try to figure out what's working in that area. Because we are in kayaks. I don't have a motor on my kayak, so I can't just go 13 miles across the. I can. It's going to take me a while. But I try to really figure out what is working in that cove. And then if that's not working, then I go to plan B and I'll look at my maps.
That's something I tell people a lot too. When you're in a kayak, you really have to exhaust your resources. You really have to decide that this area is unproductive before you move on to the next thing. Because the next thing, you may be facing 15, 20 mile per hour winds.
Yep.
It may be clear across the lake, and you're pedaling, and that's not always, it's a lot easier to just move spots when you got a 150, 200 horsepower motor on the back of your boat. So, the kayak fishermen, they tend to really go through an area with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah.
So that's one of the benefits I think that we have. It can be a blessing, but it can also be a curse.
And on the small lakes, I have a pedal drive, and it's kind of the same thing. I can cover a whole small lake easy. So It's kind of similar to the bass boat deal where I can cover the whole lake and fish too fast instead of slowing down and fishing that. But kayaks, it makes you slow down so much more because unless you just want to wear yourself out, you can't cover as much water. You really have to find out what's in where you're fishing and work that area.
Sure. I agree. Okay, so that was our little technology piece. Oh, the one thing, so I mentioned this because buddy at work, Brett Moore, he's getting ready to show me how to do this. You got to show me how to do this, Brett. He's been using Google Maps, Google Earth Pro.
Yeah.
Apparently it's the Pro. You got to have the Pro. I was doing it wrong. I was trying to figure out how to go back in time. You don't go back in time until you do the Google Earth Pro.
Yeah.
So check out Google Earth Pro, but he's getting ready to show me how to take the waypoints that I drop on Google Earth Pro and transfer them to my unit, my Humminbird or your Lowrance or Garmin or whatever. So that's something too that maybe with time, maybe we'll incorporate that into our pre-fishing sacrifices. Okay, so, and we kind of touched on this a little bit too, but that's all right. What kind of cover or structure do you target most frequently? Why? What kind of baits do you like to use in those areas? And then try to go a little bit more in depth as far as, what you think the fish are doing, because you might target your favorite piece of cover may not be productive at all in, summer or fall, or so kind of go into maybe a little bit of everything.
So depending on what lake I'm on, if I know it or not, I always look and see if there's grass or if it's just straight, just thick moss. I look for laydowns quite a bit and standing timber. On my home lake, there's a little bit of everything, so it's kind of nice. It's just on a small scale. Mm-hmm. Like smallmouth, we have a lot of smallmouth, not a ton, but a good amount in this lake, and they like to stay kind of up by the rock bluffs and that. So usually when I'm up there, I'll actually go a little bit more finesse and kind of throw that Ned rig, where the northern end of the lake is more of your standing timber and grass and things like that. So that's kind of where I'll throw and use a swim jig, and I'll actually throw on top of grass, hop it and let it drop down. I've had a lot of success with that. Other than a chatterbait, I like throwing a worm. Would that be a wacky worm, a 10-inch curly tail worm? I'll even throw, I can't even think what they're called now.
Nico?
Do what?
Nico?
No, I've tried the Nico a little bit. I'm not confident in it yet.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll throw a square bill to bounce off the rocks and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of stick. I don't want to tell all my secrets, but a lot of times without throwing just the swim jig, I'll throw a weedless swim bait. Mm-hmm. I usually try to stay with like the 4.8 Kayak, weedless, and I can pretty much throw in anything that I need. Mm-hmm. Like in the morning times, my favorite thing in the morning and evening is a whopper plopper. Something I do like very early in the mornings is if I'm not getting anything on a buzz bait or a whopper plopper, I'll actually pick up a smaller swim bait and throw in those same spots that I'm throwing that whopper plopper. Because if not hitting up top, they're probably going to be busting right below there. And I've had a lot of success this past year doing that. And then kind of later in the day, I'll switch over to my normal tackle. That's kind of what I look for, and at least what I start out with most of the time.
Sure. So you like to target submerged timber, grass, and sometimes rock too. Yeah. Just even here at Big Hill, you've got all three of those.
Yeah.
So do you notice, different times of the year that the structure maybe is more productive, the grass is maybe more productive?
Usually. Or
like you said, even maybe depends on what species you're targeting, because smallmouth are going to gravitate more towards the hard structure.
Yeah. I mean, I've even caught smallmouth all the way up in the north end. Generally, they're about the middle of the lake and south, but Usually grass, unless it's just cold out. I'll target grass all year long. I usually try to find little pockets. They might be like a cup size, but I'll toss in those little cutouts, and I'll just meticulously work each of those little spots. Even if there's like a lay down and there's a little cutout of like moss that's open there, I'll just flip in there, throw a jig or Ned rig or anything like that up inside that, and I kind of just work those small points. And then if I'm just really having a hard time, I'll go out to some of the deeper standing timber and drop a worm straight down to it and just really work that standing timber quite a bit.
Okay, cool. Okay, so the next thing we want to know is, how do you try to set yourself apart from other anglers on the water? This could mean baits. Do you have any like secrets that you're willing to give away? Maybe you fish a certain bait, in a totally different way than its intended purpose, or something like that. Like for instance, I had my buddy Edwin tell me one time that he likes to drop shot big swim baits. So he's a big swim bait fisherman, and so he'll get like, I don't know, like a 6 ounce, weight and drop shot a huge. So that's something that the fish don't see. So do you do anything like that? Or how do you try to set yourself apart from all the other lures that these fish are seeing?
So obviously you know that I like chatterbaits.
Yep.
Something that I feel sets me a little bit apart, something I do a little bit different. I don't know if I'm one of the few that do this, but instead of throwing a 1/2 ounce or a 3/8 ounce chatterbait, I actually go up to the heaviest, the 3/4 ounce. And I actually just throw a single curly tail bass grub on the back of it. I feel it gets a little bit deeper than most other chatterbaits do, so it's putting me in a different column of water. And for me, it's been really successful, at least in this last year, especially at Big Hill and at the strip pits. Usually I don't give that secret away too much, but especially like the strip pits, because they're like, a lot of those are just straight down. So I feel like if I can get further down in that water column, I can get a few more bites than most.
Okay. Cool.
I throw the jackhammer, the 3/4 green pumpkin
Exclusively?
most of the time.
The jackhammer?
The jackhammer.
That's your chatterbait.
Won't use anything else.
Okay. Okay, why?
That's just
because you fished the other baits and you decided the jackhammer was better?
Jackhammer chatters more consistently.
So you fished the other ones?
I fished the other ones.
Okay.
They have a painted blade, which I feel like is, sometimes you need a shiny blade and sometimes you don't.
Okay.
They have a better and stronger hook on them. And just that size. I mean, they don't have that size really in
a lot of other,
in the cheaper ones. They are expensive, but to me, they are 100% worth it.
Yeah, you don't lose a lot of chatterbaits.
I mean, unless you're me, you do. But
so you like to throw 3/4 ounce. You like to fish them a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
I'll say that I've always liked to throw my chatterbaits deeper, but I've been kind of limited to my retrieve. If I want to keep it down there, you kind of have to do the yo-yo, pendulum thing. Yeah. You catch a lot of catfish that way. So if anybody's here trying to catch catfish, I'm your guy. Especially when you're fishing bass tournaments, I catch catfish.
There you go. Or drum.
Yeah, this year it's been drum. 2020 was the year of the drum.
I caught the blackest crappie I've ever caught out of the strip pits on a green pumpkin chatterbait. It was about 12.5 inches, and it was like tuxedo black.
The other thing that my grandpa likes to throw curly tail, he'll cut off the end of a curly tail worm.
Yeah.
And what he has done was he'll take a craw trailer, trim it down, so you'll actually have the claws from the craw trailer, and he'll do the worm off the back, and it just does all kinds of crazy stuff. But
some guys
is it necessary? Maybe not, but it's also, you've developed some confidence in that too. And it stands out.
Yeah.
Most guys are throwing, I would say a very big percentage of guys are throwing a swim bait trailer.
Yeah.
I still like to throw a lot of craw trailers. I feel like
some guys will throw like the crawl, or like I think it's like the kamikaze sideways, which is similar to a crawl. It's just a hair different. And a lot of guys will fish them on the bottom, slow and on the bottom. I kind of go with like a medium retrieve, not too fast, not too slow. And it's really like just a vibrating swim jig at that point. But when I can bust through grass, I can hit timber, go over timber. I mean, for me, it's a very versatile bait that has worked.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like it. That's the kind of stuff we're looking to hear. Okay, so if this is something that you guys are looking to gain confidence in, if you've tried the chatter, I know there's guys out there that can't catch fish on a chatterbait.
Some guys won't use them because they have no confidence in
Yeah,
them.
so try, if you're one of those guys, try a 3/4 ounce and try
spend the money,
a grub or a curly tail worm.
Buy 2 jackhammers and try it out. And try it out all day, or at least half a day, to give yourself confidence in it, because it does work. And it is a difference.
For the trailer, you said, did you say a grub or the worm?
I use
Sorry.
I think it's a 3 or 4 inch, I think it's Carlin's, I think is the name of the brand.
Okay.
Green pumpkin, curly tail. I just put it on there with a curly tail hook. It is right, even with the hook.
So that's a grub.
And that's
cool.
What I use.
Cool. All right, and then, and we may have gone over this, but we can kind of go over it again and maybe dive a little bit more in depth into your go-to. So what is your go-to lure when fishing gets tough?
Probably the 2 things that I go to, which most people are probably going to guess this that fish my club, is a wacky worm, weightless, or a Ned rig, working it slow.
And okay, so do you do anything oddball on those setups? You said a weightless, wacky rig. What kind of a hook are you using? Are you fishing braid with fluoroleader, spinning? Go into that.
Spinning. I think it's a 7-foot medium rod. It's a Kistler rod. I love that rod. I throw it on the Fluger Supreme, I believe is what it's called. I throw straight fluorocarbon.
Okay.
I think it's 8 pound is what I throw. Some guys like to tie leader, some guys like to tie braid. I've had 0 issues with straight fluorocarbon. That's just what I use, and that's what I like.
Yeah.
As far as Ned rigs, my go-to is probably the TRD, regular TRD. If I'm not using that, I probably go to either the Tickler. I think it's called the Tickler. It's the shorter, it's like the TRD, but it has the little tentacles on it.
Hula stick?
It's a hula stick.
Yeah.
It's the short one, though.
Okay.
Or I'll throw the crawl. Crawl is probably my second one I go to.
And when you're talking Ned, are you fishing like these little tiny 1/15ths?
I throw the 1/10 ounce.
Okay.
That's my go-to. The 1/15th, if it's really shallow, I'll throw it, but most of the time I do the 10th ounce. I know a lot of guys will throw like the 6th ounce or the 5th ounce, but I throw the 10th ounce. That's just what I've started using and what I like using. Had a lot of luck with it. Really, if it gets super tough, because usually I use a natural color or black and blue. So green pumpkin, I can't remember what smelt, I think is what it's called, or black and blue. If I'm not catching anything on those, I go to a crazy color, like a mood ring, or can't remember the other color.
Junebug.
Not Junebug. To me, Junebug's still more of a darker natural color to me personally. But like the vibrant, like random, like the green, like the hot snakes that has like the chartreuse on the bottom with the green pumpkin on top, or the mood ring, or just those crazy colors. And I might only get 1 bite, but I'm producing another bite that I wouldn't have got throwing something else.
Sure.
And that's what's worked for me.
Okay, so wacky rig and the Ned rig.
Yeah. Basic, super basic, but it produces bites when I can't get a bite.
Okay, here's one. When you're on the water, things aren't going your way, weather is not cooperating, you're not getting the bites you thought you were getting, you were going to get, whatever, right? How do you keep your head in the game when you're on the water?
So I haven't fished a tournament this year, other than maybe a couple that hasn't poured down rain.
Okay.
The lake I fish is super windy all the time, and it's either windy, rainy, or both. So I kind of mentally prepare for that, is because I fish that lake a lot. During a tournament, if I'm not doing very well, I talk to myself. As crazy as it sounds, I talk to myself. I say, come on, Jake, you just need to bite. You can do it. Just stay calm and, focus on what you're doing. Don't work it too fast or too slow, or, whatever I'm using. and I just talk to myself.
So if somebody's around, like, they're gonna hear you.
They're gonna hear me talk.
You're actually.
And if I catch
you're
a
not
fish,
just talking to yourself in your head.
I'm talking out loud.
It's coming out of your mouth.
I'm talking out loud. And if I catch a fish, I'm like, yeah, come on, let's go. Like, let's do another. Like, if I catch a big fish, you'll hear me. Like, if it's really big, you'll hear me, Mike Iaconelli, yell for a little bit.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because something that when I was like preparing some of these questions, I'll ask myself.
Yeah.
And that's actually something that I don't do when I'm on the water. And I've noticed this when I've started filming myself on the water. You will see almost no reaction out of me when I catch a fish. Like, I don't know what it is, but I'm thinking things inside my head. Yeah. And I'm so focused, like I can't even verbal. I don't know what it is. It's just the weirdest thing. And if you see it on video, you're gonna be like, this guy's crazy. You know, I look even crazier than the guy that's talking to himself. Yeah. I am like a little kid. I get excited. I find a 2-inch perch just as exciting as anything, unless I'm in a bass tournament. But I just like catching fish. I don't really care what size it is. Sometimes the small ones are just as fun as the big ones. But yeah, I mean, I talk to myself. The tournament, the Bass Nation state qualifier, when I caught those fish, I mean, I was hyped. I was like, come on, man, like, you need one more fish, you need 2 more fish. Like, you're ahead of everyone right now as far as the thing shows. Like, let's freaking go. Yeah. And I mean, I probably sound silly or whatever out there, but sure, I don't have anyone else pushing me out there, like, as far as, you know, somebody behind me as a cheerleader. So I just, you know, try to keep my head straight that way. How would you rate yourself, like, on a scale of, you know, 1 to 10, I guess, just for fun? How would you rate yourself on your ability to keep a composure? Do you get really down on yourself when you're doing down, or do you have you got this talking to yourself thing down to where you kind of stay pretty level-headed? I usually stay pretty level-headed. Optimistic, you know, even towards the end. Maybe you've only got 4 fish, you know, or maybe you only got 3 fish and there's an hour left or 30 minutes left. Are you the guy that's like, I think you know, I could definitely catch 2 fish in the next 30 minutes. Like, is that you? I'm the guy that won't come off the water till I have to. Yeah. Most of the time. I've had one tournament this year. I let myself get frustrated and I stopped early. Yeah. You can ask anybody out there. I literally fish by the ramp until I have to. I lost a fish that would put me in first place by the ramp while 5 people watched me miss it this year. So I go to the end. I might be a little frustrated mentally in here, but I still try to talk myself into keep going, because you don't know, you can catch 3 fish in 5 minutes. Yeah. I won a league night in the last 5 minutes because I was out there. I think it was me and one other person. So it matters. Yeah. I mean, no, it really happens that way. So I think that's, you know, the mental part of fishing is something that a lot of people don't really talk about. And that's something that, you know, in this series, you know, behind the reel, we want to know, you know, the mental aspect of it. So, you know, the preparation, you know, the motive, you know, being able to motivate yourself, you know, things like that are I think what, and it may not be everything, but it's what can separate the good anglers from the average anglers. Sure. You know, the guys that are just kind of going through the motions, you know, those guys aren't probably putting as many plaques on the wall, you know, the guys that are able to stay focused and keep themselves motivated. And so it's interesting to hear, you know, your method behind the madness. Now, after a tournament, totally different. I'm pretty hard on myself. And the only reason I am is because I know I can do better in certain situations, or like, I should have done this, or I should have done that. A lot of people tell me I need to just have fun, but I'm out there to compete. I like to win. It's not everything if I don't win. But I think if I'm hard on myself and push myself to be better the next time, then I'm going to be better the next time. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I'm probably too hard on myself, but I think it's a way to drive myself to be better for the next tournament or the next national tournament or something like that. So on the water, I can keep myself composed most of the time. At home, if I didn't take home a second place trophy, or if I did take it and I lost by 2 inches, I'm pretty hard on myself at home. Yeah. But then I figure out, what did I do wrong? What can I do better the next time? Yeah. And you'll go over those situations and try to be more prepared the next time. Something that I really focused on this year, you know, being a full second year with the club and fishing tournaments, is, you know, everybody sticks to the baits they're confident in. And I think if you really get yourself to not fish 2 baits
that you always fish and throw something else or a color you're not used to throwing, that will help you become a better angler no matter who you are. Because I'm not the best angler ever, you're not the best angler ever, so you can always learn if you're willing to learn and get better.
Do you do that in a tournament situation, or do you do it, in a fun or a pre-fishing?
I do it kind of both. If I'm in a tournament situation and I'm just not producing the fish I want to fish, I'll take out a different color, a totally different color I never used before, or a different bait that I haven't used before. And a couple of tournaments, it's proven to get me a fish. Bum Creek, I drop shotted probably more than I did previously, and I caught 2 fish on it. One of them was a dink, but I caught a fish on it. Better than what I was catching at that spot before. So try new baits, try new colors. Don't be scared to ask somebody a question, because it will help you in the long run. Be diverse.
I like it. Okay, so this might actually take us into our next question here. So what I want to find out, so basically what you're telling me, I want you to take me back to a time and place. We can talk about a couple of different situations or whatever, but take me back to a specific situation where your pattern wasn't holding up and you had to just completely switch it up. Maybe it was a bait, maybe you had to switch up the area, maybe you had to switch up your retrieve, whatever, right? So just take me back to a time and a place when you were struggling and you were able to grind through. You're talking to yourself out there on the water, you're getting yourself motivated, and you had to totally switch it up, and it worked in your favor.
Trying to think.
So in working in your favor could be you caught a drop shot fish, and it was a dink.
Right.
That it doesn't have to necessarily be that you came out with the tournament win, but take me back to a time and a place where you use some of the things that we've been talking about and actually were able to translate it into.
There are probably a couple tournaments I had. There was it was actually one of our league nights. I hadn't caught any fish. It was 30 minutes left. 30 to 45 minutes left. I wasn't throwing my normal stuff. I'd switched back to a Ned rig. I wasn't really catching, much stuff. I'm trying to remember what I switched to. I cannot remember what I switched to, but it was something that I totally normally don't use. I wish I could remember what it was. It might have just been a totally different color. But I produced 4 fish, only needed 3, about 30 feet from coming back to where we need to be. And I ended up winning that by like 8 inches, that tournament.
So you were, this is a 3 or 4 hour long
This is I think it's like 3.5 hours. I think it was 5:30 to 9. On a small lake. It was pretty tough that day. It was our least amount of people there, of course. So I won the least amount of money we had ever did, but that's okay. I won one. I went through that whole lake. I went all the way back in the creek, came all the way back. I fished the dam. I was drop shot in the dam. I caught 1 fish on a drop shot. I came around. I guess I said I didn't catch it. I caught 1 drop shot fish by the dam. It was little fish.
Mm-hmm.
I came around to this last cove before the ramp to come out, and you could see everyone standing there, and other than I think it was me, a guy named Daniel, and I think one other person who I convinced to keep fishing. And I caught him like 30 feet, 30 yards, wherever. It was pretty dang close to the ramp. Mm-hmm. I just cannot remember.
Pretty close to the end.
But it was like last minute.
So that's just,
it won me $80, and it was only $80, but at that point I had like 0 to 1 fish at that point, so I had caught, bam, 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 within last minute.
Just keeping yourself in the game,
Yeah.
keeping yourself focused.
We had an event at Big Hill, another event at Big Hill. I was doing horrible in the morning. I had went up to the cove right before the bridge, the one on the opposite side you asked me about today, where it curves. Wasn't catching anything. I switched over to a bright gold chatterbait. I caught one fish on it. I've never thrown that color before. I caught one fish on it. Wasn't catching anything else, so I threw a lipless crankbait, and I caught 2 fish on it. I hardly ever throw a lipless crankbait.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of them. I never throw them though.
Sure.
Came around that corner, just throwing in between standing timber, boom, boom, 2 fish. Changed the whole day. It changed my mental mode. It changed everything. So
okay, so let's build on that a little bit. So you have a tough morning, you're not catching fish, it's midday, 10, 11 o'clock or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You catch a couple fish on a couple random baits that you have, little to no confidence in.
Yeah.
Do you keep fishing those baits? Or do you kind of transition yourself back into your comfort zone and throw the swim jig, throw the chatterbait that's not bright gold, throw the how do you do that?
So that part of the lake, I don't fish it a lot. It's not my most confident spot. So I was like, I'm just going to change it up. Go around the corner. I caught those 2 fish. I wasn't getting any more bites after that. So I don't know if it was just lucky bites or if it just happened to be those colors at that time. I went further around that cove. I think it was actually I met you that day. I just didn't tell you I caught a fish. And I think I was fishing that tournament with you. Went around, went all the way by the bridge, didn't catch nothing. Came around that rock ramp that we unloaded from today, threw back on a swim jig, a weighted swim bait, not a swim jig, and boom, I caught one right in between those trees, and then a little farther up I caught two more fish, and that put me at my limit. My limit wasn't very big, but then I got my confidence back in kind of my confidence bait, so I had worked that back edge. So it comes down to, if something's not working, change it up. If you're throwing that, catch a fish or two, it's not working, change it up. Don't be scared to go back to what you weren't catching on that side of the lake or in that cove. If you see grass and you want to throw something that goes in grass, change back and throw some of that grass. Like, change it up, switch up.
Yeah.
Like, make it work to catch fish. You're not always going to catch fish, but if you're changing it up, trying, like, results are eventually going to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not, like I tell my kids when we go fishing, you're not going to catch any fish if your line's not in the water.
Exactly.
So, yeah, if you're not catching anything on your confidence stuff, switch it up.
Yeah.
You might put a few fish in the boat, and that might give you the mental, just like the whole mental aspect of it, to keep yourself motivated and keep yourself going.
Yeah.
So you're not getting down on yourself. So yeah, it may come from something
I've even
never caught a fish on before.
I've had such bad luck before. I threw on a purple Meps to throw something different. I started slaughtering the bass on them.
Yeah.
So
I heard Ike Canelli did a video on that recently where he said that's I think that was one of his favorite go-to when the fish are tough. He'll throw on a little inline spinner.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, the kayak tournament, you're going off inches. So, if you have 3 good fish or 2 good fish and no little fish, and you throw an inline spinner and you catch 2 little fish, at least you have a full stringer.
So so this kind of we're just rolling here. So speaking of measuring in inches, your finish being determined by length, you also have to realize the Angler of the Year standings, obviously.
Exactly.
With Angler of the Year being awarded, whether that's cash or a trophy or whatever it might be. Right. How do you take that into consideration when you're on the water? Especially on a tough day, at some point, obviously if a Ned is going to be, you're just targeting whatever will bite, but at some point, do you kind of just give up on, the big fish or the stringer, the overall length, and go for the small fish just to kind of help you in the Angler of the Year?
So my goal when I go out there my first goal, catch fish. Get that skunk off off the boat, get your confidence up, going, started, and then my only goal, I don't care how big they are, is to catch 5 fish.
Catch 5.
I don't care if they're all 8 inches, you know, because some guys might come in with 2 16-inch fish, but you have 5 8-inch fish, you know, and you're 8 inches above them. So it doesn't matter if you catch small fish, measure them, put them on there. 8 inches could win you a tournament, or 10 inches, whatever, or 12 inches, whatever your minimum length is. Yeah. Put it on there. Who cares if it's a small fish? You know? Okay. Once I catch my limit, my goal is to upgrade each fish and just continue to upgrade until the end of the day. If it's a 1/4 inch, I don't care. At least I'm upgrading fish. You know?
So is this, okay, so going back to that, so I can understand that, and I can understand how that could keep you from getting too discouraged, you know, because if you set your goals too high, then, you know, you're going to be real hard on yourself. It's going to be hard to keep that positive, you know, mindset. So your first goal is to catch a fish. You catch that 1 fish. Now we're working on getting closer to that 5. Once we get those 5, then we're going to start looking at, you know, maybe trying to mix in a couple bigger ones to give us that bag to take home the trophy. Right. So at some point during 2020 season, did you realize that, you know, Angler of the Year is achievable? How did you not let that? How did you not get too wrapped up in that? You know.
My goal, not only this year, was to, you know, win a couple tournaments. My main goal was to win Angler of the Year this year. Okay.
The whole, pretty much from the
whole year.
That was your goal.
I would have loved to win our championship, but Angler of the Year to me means I was consistent and I did good all year. So to me, that meant more than just a 1 tournament win. Yeah. At least I'm doing good consistently. I might have not have won all 5 of our tournaments in championship, but that just means I have room to improve. If I win every one of them, then sometimes you get in your head, you're like, okay, I'm pretty good. I don't need to improve on anything. Getting second place twice, that puts a fire in me to go, I can be better than I was, and I can get first place in 3 tournaments next year. Or get second place in 4 tournaments, you know. But Angler of the Year, I mean, the only thing I care about when I'm on the water at first is getting a limit and not getting zeroed out.
So you're not really even thinking about this stuff when you're on the water. You're able to kind of compartmentalize your bigger goals, put those bigger goals in the back of the filing cabinet, and focus on what's in front of you at that point in time.
At the beginning of the tournament or the day before, I mean, I know how many points I need, what place I need to get to keep myself in first or to move up. So, you know, that's a small goal, but my only goal I care about when I'm on the water is getting a limit, getting a fish, and working on my confidence throughout the day. Because if you don't have any confidence, you're going to get frustrated with yourself, and you're not going to do as good. Because you might be, you know, you get frustrated, you're going to reel faster, and you're not going to be working that bait as good, or you're going to be popping a jig too fast, or not fast enough. So, you know, you got to kind of keep that stuff out of it, even though you really care about it and you want it to be on your shelf and like, hey, I did this. But when you're on the water, you got to be focused on what you're doing that day. Because I think a lot of people with like Tourney X, because Tourney X and a lot of the big tournaments, it shows you like where you're at. So if you're looking on there and you're like, okay, I'm in 5th, I need to get 2 more places. If you just don't look at it, then you just are in the mode of, I just need to catch the most and longest fish I can with this 8 or 9 hours that I have to fish. And then at the end, worry about what place you got. Yeah. Because if you're worried about what place you got, you're not really worried about fishing. You're not going to catch your fish.
Okay, so it spins me off in another direction. Yeah. How do you use that same mindset? Because I feel like that same mindset you can use in life. You can use at home, you know, with being a better husband or a better father, or you can use it at work, being a better employee, you know, or a better leader in your club, you know. So I feel like those are attributes of really successful people. You know, if you look back at people that have been really successful in tournament fishing or in business or whatever it may be, you know, they've been able to set these goals for themselves, but also stay focused on what's going on in the present. And not a lot of people have the ability to do that. I struggle with it myself often, not only in fishing, but in everyday life. So how do you feel like that has helped you or could help somebody else? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, not only goes for fishing, but it goes for anything in life. I have probably too many goals in my life, and they change from here and there. I mean, people that know me know I've had 8 bajillion, and yes, that's a word, hobbies in my life, which is okay, but I've kind of knocked it down to, I've always fished. I want to focus on fishing. I know I raise dogs, I do that on the side.
Motorcycles.
I have a motorcycle, I mean, I do a lot of things, but my goal with everything
Was hunting ever very big?
I hunted birds and squirrels. I bought a deer rifle last year. I just haven't. I've been deer hunting. I plan on getting.
What are some of the hobbies that you've had in?
I've showed chickens. I've raised chickens. I sold chickens. I have Great Danes. I sell Great Danes. What else have I done?
Did you do like dirt bikes, or you just strictly?
I did enduro stuff, like we could go ride trails and things like that. I judged 4-H shows. I was a high school soccer referee.
So soccer was a big thing, right?
Soccer. Me and my wife played adult league soccer on Wednesday or Thursday nights.
Yeah.
I used to stream on Twitch for video games with my racing simulator.
Okay.
I mean, I've done.
See, and that's something that
stuff.
I have noticed about, and it may be, in other hobbies, and it may be in other sports, but I've noticed with the kayak, I've been running the Air Capital Kayak Angler since 2015.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on like 6 years now.
Right.
So I've started to kind of put some of this together where the guys that are kayak fishing and the guys that really get into it are the guys that have these other hobbies, or that have gotten into these hobbies, and they'll kind of like you, they'll kind of get really into kayak fishing for a little while, and then maybe they'll find something else that like piques their interest, and they'll get really into hunting, or they'll get into painting model cars, or they'll get into frisbee golf, these guys, they will get really hardcore into something, and they will dedicate all their time and their energy to it, and that is just something that I have kind of noticed about this group of people, is that when they get into something, they like go all in.
So that pretty much explains me. Anything I get into, I pretty much go to the extreme of it. A lot of things, I've stopped doing just because sometimes a lot of stuff is financially hard to keep doing. Like I was into keep fish tanks. I had like 30 fish tanks with reptiles and fish like that, but I wanted to really focus on like one thing, and fishing was always like that thing that I always went back to. So I probably dove into it further than a lot of people, but it's something that I'm like super passionate about. And I mean, I work in the fishing industry now. I work at a tackle retail/hotel shop.
Yeah.
Creating these groups gave me a lot of opportunities. I've met you through this. I've gained I don't even know how many. I have 500 friends on Facebook in my group.
Yeah.
You're a good friend of mine. I talk to you almost every day. It's one of those things that leads into other opportunities, and it's one of those.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and I can attest to that, with me working where I do and diving so deep into the kayak fishing scene and creating a group and building those ties. I obviously got this job because of running a group. Even the job before this, that wasn't even in the fishing industry, I got because of having that group. And we were doing a fundraiser for families in need around Christmas time. Yeah. And one of the guys that donated offered me a job, and so these type of things definitely help out in everyday life. Oh, yeah. And if you can stay motivated at work and you can stay focused on the big goals, but you can keep chipping away at those little goals, I think it'll make you a better employee, a better husband, a better father, a better,
I think if you have
model car painter or whatever,
Yeah, I mean, fishing tournaments, you have goals, and if you have goals in that, then you're more likely to have goals in life, like you say, at work, to get that promotion or anything like that. So I think a lot of this goes hand in hand with a lot of regular activities as an adult.
Absolutely. Well, this is lasting a lot longer than I thought it would, but this is going to be a good video. This is exactly what I wanted to get out of you, and
Right.
we'll elaborate, I think, a little bit, maybe come up with some different questions along the way and stuff.
Sure.
But I like how this went. One last thing is, okay, so we kind of went into that as that was part of number 10. The other part of it is just, what does fishing mean to you?
I mean, it's something that I've done as a kid. It's something that I've always, even if I wasn't doing it full time like I do now, it's always something that I've done on the side, whether it be pond hopping or, you know, bait fishing from at a lake. Fishing is one of those things that, you know, I always get excited to catch a fish. Kind of brings the kid back in me. It's something that I'm decent at, that I feel like, you know, drives me to be a better fisherman, whether that tournament or teaching somebody how to fish. I enjoy that a lot. You know, my wife, she never knew how to fish before this. She lived in a big city, never really lived in a small town, how to go fishing a lot. So to be able to teach her how to fish and like seeing her be excited about it, like that is like means a lot to me.
And do well. She's had some.
She's lost 2 league nights by a quarter of an inch.
Yeah.
She gets more upset than me probably when she loses. So, and like for her to like be as excited and like be into it like I am, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, like my whole family's into it, so it's something that fishing with my whole family, you know, with random people, like to me that's everything. So the answer to that is fishing to me is literally my life. It's everything to me. I do it at work. I come home. That's all I want to do. You know, if I'm not out fishing, I'm working on the club stuff. So I'm talking about it to someone. So it's kind of cool to be that guy that gets to talk about it and do it at work. And
yeah,
you know, my house is full of fishing stuff.
Cool fishing stuff.
Luckily, my wife allows me to do that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So
yeah, I can relate. It's definitely something that I just think about nonstop, and it's a time for me to just decompress sometimes. You know, it may not always. It's nice when you can kind of detach the tournament stuff and just go out and have fun.
My favorite time to go fishing is, you know, a couple of jobs ago, I'd get off and have 2 hours of daylight, and I'd go take my $100 Sun Dolphin and go out to the lake, and there's no one out there. Sunset setting, you know, I might only be catching 1 or 2 fish, but just to be out there and get your mind right and relax and be by yourself, that's what it's about.
Yeah, definitely. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you doing this.
No
Let me know what you guys think. We went over a lot of things in this video. If you guys, you know, maybe want us to elaborate on some things, but we've got some cool baits, some cool map study, you know, things that we went over, some pre-fishing. We went over, you know, what kind of structure and cover. I mean, so we can really dive deeper into some of these things later on, and Jacob's just down the road from me, so, you know, we'll maybe even do some on the water videos of how to do some of this stuff. So, but this is just kind of try to get, you know, a little bit of mental, you know, how to prepare and how to keep yourself motivated, and we're just trying to find out what's behind the reel. I think we got a little bit of that, little glimpse of that. This was probably over an hour long worth of video. So we're going to chop it down. We're going to try to get, you know, the nuts and bolts in this video. But anyways, if you guys have any questions or concerns or whatever, you know, maybe you have some ideas for the next video, or maybe you have an idea for the next subject, you know, the next person that you want to see me interview. I think what I'd really like to start off with is people in Kansas, you know, or within, you know, the Southeast Kansas group, the Air Capital group, maybe the Flint Hills guys, the NECA guys, maybe some guys within the Midwest that we fish with. If you got any recommendations, I'd like to hear that. I don't know, I just drew a blank. But yeah, just we're going to try to keep this thing going, and let me know if you have any recommendations. And also check out his group, the Southeast Kansas Kayak Anglers. They have some really cool events going on. Big Hill Lake is always a good one. The one that I think I'm most excited about is going to be the strip pits.
That's what I'm excited about.
If you guys don't know about the strip pits, you want to give us a little rundown?
So the strip pits were dug back in, I think, the 50s or 60s for coal. There's over 1,000 of them. Very few of them were private. There's, I think, 100 or 150 that have concrete ramps. The other ones you can, especially with a kayak, you can load from the land. They range from, you can see all the way to the bottom, they're so clear, to a couple of them are muddy. The crane, the digger, whatever it's called, Big Brutus, is still out there. You can go visit it. I mean, it ranges from lily pads to grass to lay downs to, it's kind of its own world out there. All the clubs from Kansas are going to be there. Anyone else is welcome to come. It's going to be a really fun event.
Probably see a bunch of the Moyak guys come out because it's not too far away from them.
Yep.
You'll see ranges of species out there as well.
You'll see raccoons, deer. I mean, there's a trout pit, there's a striper pit, there's walleye, there's bass, there's crappie, there's large sunfish out there. I mean, it's just, even if you want to come down and fish it just for fun, it's worth coming and just fishing, and it's worth it. It's probably my favorite place to fish.
And then just a little bit of backstory. They did have a tournament out there last year.
Yeah.
Do you recall what it took to win that tournament, or how well maybe even the top 3 guys or groups
I think
did?
every time it's been at least 90 inches or over. I know the team tournament, me and my buddy Dakota won, I think we had 92 or 93 inches.
It's crazy.
And like that day was such a good day, we probably caught 70 or 80 bass and we're throwing back 16 to 18s.
And this is in Kansas. 90 plus inches is...
Russ Ackerman caught, I think, a 22 or 23 inch bass, and there's some that are... The state record of Kansas came out of a private pit, and it was 11 pounds.
Yeah, so it's a destination, not only for, nobody comes to Kansas to fish for bass, but if you come to Kansas to fish for bass, that's where you probably ought to go.
Yeah. You don't have to have a pedal drive on those. You can paddle just as easy. If you have a motor, it's even better. But, some of them are decently large, some of them are small. But they range from 10 to 15 foot deep, and there's a couple that are 60 to 80 feet deep. So
cool.
It's a range of fishing.
Yeah.
It's fun.
That's one I'm excited about.
Yeah.
But we're going to go ahead and jump off here. I'm going to get to editing this video, see what we can put together.
Yeah,
and thank you guys for joining us. Jacob, thank you.
No problem. Thanks for
This
having
has been Behind the Reel with Mr. Jacob Ward.
Nice. It's only like an hour long.